took many years of hard work, but I think I can finally say at this point in time that I am bigger than Lex Luger. I'm Eric Santamaria, host of the Wrestling Roundtable. You are here on blogtalkradio.com/Wrestling Roundtable. The number to call is 347-857-4647. We want to hear your thoughts on the latest goings-on in pro wrestling and mixed martial arts if you like, but we're going to be concentrating mainly on pro wrestling today. And before we get to that, I want to remind you to go to WrestlingRoundtable.com, and there you can sign up for our new mailing list. Newsletter by Jason Aletto, providing exclusive news and updates on Wrestling Roundtable. And you can also get the links to our MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, Go Fight Live, and iTunes pages on WrestlingRoundtable.com. I want to hear your calls today, because so far the panel is only made up of the Wills. Will Vafides and Will from New Jersey.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Going all right. It's hot as hell here on the East Coast, as you probably know.
Get your laptop off your lap then, dude.
It is not on my lap. My nuts are not frying today. But I'm glad that you called in, Will, because speaking of being hot, you attended the Pro Wrestling Respect 4 show this past Sunday. How did you like it?
I thought it was good. I liked it a lot. The six-man tag with Austin Aries, actually all the guys. I don't feel like saying all six names.
Ricky Ricardo.
Yeah, Ricky Ricardo. He was a cool guy. Missed Lucy though, but you know. But no, I thought that was a great match. I thought you had some good matches. The main event was a cool match, but it was kind of a shame that Bobby Dempsey got a little blown out, a little faster in the match, but it was still a good match all around.
Well, considering his size and the thick air in the Burlington National Guard Army, not exactly a surprise, but he pulled through and got a big ovation at the end of the night. And Pro Wrestling Respect 5 will be taking place August 22nd, Sunday, August 22nd. So please support Pro Wrestling Respect, as the Wrestling Roundtable does. You can get Pro Wrestling Respect DVDs at our store at WrestlingRoundtable.com, as well as tickets to the upcoming Pro Wrestling Respect event. But like I said, we're going to be concentrating mainly on pro wrestling this week. Been talking about a lot of MMA recently, but all pro wrestling, so those who complain usually about too much MMA talk can save your wang for another week. Up first, to recap some of the latest big shows, and hey, if you're a wrestling fan of the current products anyway, seems like it's been a pretty good week. A lot of the shows getting a lot of good reviews and a lot of good reception, and one of them, at least half of it, was TNA Victory Road 2010. A lot of big matches that got a good reaction, and a lot in the undercard usually, who didn't. So I want to go to Will Vafides. How'd you feel about this pay-per-view Victory Road?
There was a lot of downs more than ups on this show. A lot of the booking, to me, didn't make a lot of sense.
Let me guess, the Tara return and the ridiculous biker helmet?
Not really that. That's not really a big deal. But the bigger deal to me was actually the Flair Jay Lethal match. I didn't understand that one. This whole feud now is just like done within 1 week. It's like over now. There's like, if you had Flair win, you could have had this go for another 2 more months. Now that Jay Lethal won, forget it. Now it's completely over with. And that build-up was the best build-up of the whole pay-per-view. And to me, it doesn't make any sense that the fact that Jay Lethal won the match. I don't think there was a reason.
Could the reason possibly be that they don't feel it has legs with Ric Flair being this age to be able to draw this out? They might as well just use him for what he's good for and putting Jay Lethal over, which he definitely did. And it was, I think, a decent match. Certainly not the greatest match ever, like him and Steamboat would be in '89, but for a 61-year-old on steroids, he does pretty well. How do you think Ric Flair performed, though, in the match itself?
Ric Flair is always the man. He always brings his A-game. I tell you, there's not a time where I said Flair looks bad. I never look at Flair being the bad person because he's 61. Mm-hmm. How can I say, okay, well, Ric Flair messed up the whole match? You know, Sting does worse than Flair. At least Flair can guide.
Worse than Flair. I think Sting's in much better shape. I know he's much younger, at least in his 50s. But I think Sting's in incredible shape for his age and this long in wrestling.
How I actually meant that was more about how to actually guide someone in the ring to actually execute a match correctly. You know, that's how I looked at it. I mean, I'm not really talking about his size. I'm really talking about how the flow of the match does. Because Sting's a little bit slower in the ring than Flair is, in my eyes. So, again, I thought this could have been built up where Jay Lethal should have lost, or Ric Flair should have cheated, and they could have continued this feud, and now it's over. And Jay Lethal lost the next night on Impact, which totally kills him now. So it's bad booking, so much bad booking. The only good thing that was booked right was that tag team match.
Well, we will get to the tag team match a little later, but on the Flair Lethal segment, because that feud was talked about a lot on our message board, and it's got a lot of people buzzing because, holy shit, Jay Lethal does a Ric Flair impression, that's great too. And I thought the Dueling Flairs segment, which everyone was raving about, was a little overdone because the first week, it was great, yeah, but by the time they got to Dueling Flairs, which was the second time they had done that sort of thing, it was all right, okay, we get it. It's the same thing over and over now. Let's get to the match. So let's go to Ryan from Massachusetts. Hello, Ryan.
Hey.
Do you think that this Ric Flair-Jay Lethal feud could have been drawn out, or was it just like, let's get it over with and put Lethal over?
Hopefully it's let's get it over with, put Lethal over. I mean, as I think Will already said, Flair is doing great in the ring for his age and his health and all that, but I mean, Lethal can be doing so much more stuff. I mean, once he beat Styles the last pay-per-view, I think, I mean, come on, he should start getting those, I don't even know what the ranking system is anymore, but he should start getting pushes more and higher up the card,
Well, I want to go to Will from New Jersey because I know you're an MMA fan as well, and this past weekend in Australia, Ken Shamrock lost very quickly to Pedro Hizzo due to leg kicks, and of course it's the shoot version of wrestling, the real version of fighting and whatever. But I think it's kind of a parallel thing where, much like we've talked about Chuck Liddell on the show, Ken Shamrock is getting to the point where, as someone described him online, and I thought it was hilarious, he's a living piece of history you can punch. So I think a lot of people are looking at him as getting to the point where it's going to be better off for him to just hang it up. And I kind of got a similar feeling watching the Flair-Lethal match because, yeah, Flair can still go and he's still serviceable and he's fine, but after such a great retirement ceremony a couple years ago, does 61-year-old Ric Flair still need to be taking the same backdrop bumps and gorilla press bumps in 2010, Will?
Absolutely not. No, definitely not. I mean, I understand he still needs money and everything. He's broke, but I mean, he could still be a manager or be something. He could be a personality. He does not need to be taking backdrops. I mean, at 61. And actually, I remember when I saw that shitstorm they had when it was Vince and Hogan versus Flair and Styles, and the shitstorm that was. I mean, ever since then, I remember thinking, why the hell would Flair even get in the ring after embarrassing himself like that? But apparently, he doesn't get the message. And apparently he still loves it, which is good for him, but come on, man. There's a time and place, and its time has passed.
Well, there was one message left on our YouTube inbox from Hardly Funny. Bryce, once again, he said, I guess referring to that Dueling Flairs segment, that's my line. Do you think that's my line is a reference to Ric Flair's reluctance to share cocaine with the other wrestlers? I think that's pretty likely. And speaking of cocaine and Ric Flair, I think there's a message out there to current wrestlers. What's really missing about promos in wrestling today is cocaine. Because when you watch the fucking promos from the 80s with Flair and Piper and Savage and Hogan and Road Warriors and these guys screaming at the top of their lungs, their faces turning red, that's what's missing, cocaine. At least that's my impression. But, as Will Vafidas brought up, the tag match between Motor City Machine Guns and Beer Money, Inc. for the vacant tag titles, on one hand, of course, it is disappointing that, A, it's been this fucking long. I couldn't believe that it's gotten to this point and Motor City Machine Guns hadn't won the tag belts, considering their tag team chemistry and how over they are, and especially how sad it is that the fucking Outsiders were the tag champs, vacating it. They didn't even fucking lose it. You do realize, audience, that there was a time period for a week this year in 2010 where Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Bret Hart all held titles in major wrestling companies. Odd. But anyway, regardless of that, the tag match was pretty phenomenal, and I know you agree with that, Will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. Again, they are the best tag team that we have right now. They've always have been for a long time. I just don't understand why it took this long to get noticed. You know, it took to break up the band to get them a tag title. They should have had these belts, and they should keep these belts for a while, because right now The in-ring flow is just wonderful. They know how to talk to each other. It's like a Hart Foundation versus a British Bulldogs kind of feel with this team. It has that kind of feel to it again, where there's actually meaning behind these teams. And, you know, as long as they don't break them up, they're in their best-of-5 series, which doesn't really make any sense because I don't understand what they're going for in the end of it. But,
well, maybe they're going for a series of tag bouts like the Bulldogs and Hart Foundation.
Well, but there's no meaning behind it. There's what.
Yeah, there is. They're wrestling to prove who's the best tag team over the belts. What more do you need?
That's already been proven. They already won the belts. They just beat them. What do they have to prove? They already beat them, and that's where it doesn't make any sense. You do a best-of-5 or best-of-7 series for a belt, or there's got to be a really good reason behind it. And
well, I guess maybe that's why they did that sort of finish with the screwy double Hebner's pin sort of deal.
Which is true. I could see that, you know, but of course we won't know the end of this feud until after Hardcore Justice.
Either way, I thought the first couple minutes were a little off, and then it really picked up and ended up being a great tag match. See, I'm just not a fan of a lot of the slapping shit. Everyone, that's the big thing, especially in indie wrestling now, where everyone's got to slap their leg for everything, even if it misses by a mile, like Saban's running kick did on the outside apron. But that's just a pet peeve of mine. After the first few minutes, it really turned into a really great match, even screwy finish and all. But the other big match that a lot of people were talking about was the Kurt Angle and Pope D'Angelo De Niro match, and boy, did I enjoy this match. Fantastic, fundamentally great match. See, the thing for me is I'm a detail person. I'm artistic, and I pay attention to details. And the big thing with me is form. I'm very high on form and doing it properly. And everything in this match, and it was just basic stuff. It wasn't even anything moonsaults off cages or anything, and not that that isn't good in and of itself, but just a great basic chain wrestling. And even the announcers were good for this match, Taz and Mike Tenay. At least Mike Tenay was a little more tolerable than usual, but Taz was really good with explaining the little nuances, like the suplexes are based out of hip movement and wrist control on chain wrestling and things like that. It started off decently slow as far as chain wrestling goes, and the crowd was into it, built up to some of the bigger spots later on. Everything performed perfectly. In fact, there was even a spot with Slick Johnson that I liked, and this is something for referees to keep in mind, is to always be on the side where the shoulders are being pinned to the mat. And he adjusted himself mid-pin to make sure that his eyesight was in the right place, and I enjoyed that. And like I said, I really just like the little things. I can appreciate and do enjoy some of the high flyers like El Blazer and Jack Evans doing a million twists in midair, but I can also appreciate a good chain wrestling sequence. Would you agree with this analysis, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I like just nice flowing matches. Nice where it's nice and smooth. It works out nicely. And this one again, not much high flying, and you didn't really need it for this match. When they're talking about a championship series, you expect good wrestling because they're they're known to be the top contenders and they're supposed to pull off a really great match. And Angle pulled off an excellent match. The Pope, again, wonderful talent. I don't know why WWE let him go. There was just such a huge mistake with that. The only thing that I had a problem with the match, and it's not them wrestling, it had nothing to do with that, the fact that Angle said he would retire if he would lose. So to me, what was the point of even watching the match if you already kind of knew Angle was winning? That's the only thing that hurt it, was that it was kind of obvious who was winning the match.
Well, that's going to be that way for the next several matches, because that's the whole thing with them. He's going to get all the way through the top 10, and if he loses just one of those matches, he's going to retire.
Yeah, but, again, I wouldn't talk about it that much, I guess. I guess they talked about it too much. Just have to go out there and say, hey, we're going for the championship series. Mention it one time, but don't, bring it up as, the main thing, because everyone knows that, he's not going to lose at number 8. He's going to lose at, number 1. So just, concentrate on the wrestling match. Don't worry about the gimmick of him retiring, because I hate that, because it's not going to happen. So why don't you just don't bring it up?
Kurt Angle, once again, especially in the past 6 months, has been on such a roll with TNA between the January 4th TV main event with AJ and even the Genesis main event along with him. The cage match with Anderson and this match as well. Pope still looked good coming out of it as well. Everything just really gelled in that match, and that's something I truly enjoyed. But it seems as if people were split on the four-way main event with Anderson, Hardy, the enigmatic assholes, Abyss, and Rob Van Dam for the title. What'd you feel about the main event, Will?
I am an asshole. It was okay. I really didn't have any emotional investment in the match. I'll be real honest. The only thing I care about is when Mr. Anderson has mic time. Other than that, I didn't have really any investment in the match, I'll be honest. So nothing really, stood out for me. It was good, but nothing really stood out.
All right, then fuck it then. Let's move on. Staying on the TNA thread, though, I wanted to bring up something that's been going on our message board. A lot of people are commenting on the possible Hulk Hogan retirement. If you're not aware, and you can check the news on WrestlingRoundtable.com every week to get all the news going on in pro wrestling and mixed martial arts, all in one place, and some exclusive stuff as well. As I updated today, the report recently has been that Hogan is claiming that after his recent back surgery, and he's had many, that he'll never be able to wrestle again. And I think a lot of the people on our message board are not joking and are actually being pretty callous about it, and everyone's saying things like, good, fuck him, and oh, great, now he'll never win the title, and like who gives a shit? But what do you feel about this? Well, Hulk Hogan, I'm sure, much like myself, is someone that you probably grew up watching as well, maybe love or hate, I don't know, but he's the biggest star in wrestling history, period, and he's contributed so much to wrestling in so many ways. As much as people want to whine and complain about his in-ring performance and skill and his ego, and even if all that's true, the fact is that a lot of those wrestlers who were on those, of course, this was pre-brand split, but there were several different house show tours in the 80s when Hogan was champion, and everyone wanted to be on the show Hogan was on because people were going to be there, they were going to get paid, and everyone knew Hogan was the big breadwinner for WWF at the time. And, of course, you could also make the argument for him sparking the wrestling war in the mid-90s with the NWO and WCW and other things of that nature. So, just the overall career perspective of Hulk Hogan, and people are pretty much happy that he's crippled. Are you on this bandwagon too?
No one should be even commenting on a guy that's taken a beating just to entertain us for so many years. It's not fair to actually make fun of the guy for anything. He's done so much for wrestling that a lot of us would not even be watching if it wasn't for him. So anybody to just not even diss him in any way about his injuries or anything, he can do whatever the fuck he wants. He's fucking Hulk Hogan, everybody. I don't care. He's fucking Hulk Hogan. He can do whatever the hell he wants. If he wants to retire, let him retire. But don't make fun of the guy for his back injuries, his leg injuries. He's done too much for this business to get that kind of crap treatment, that he's been kind of getting, people responding on the message board about it. It's just, if he's going to retire, let him retire, but let him actually do it. I don't want to pull a Ric Flair. That's something I don't want him to do. If he's going to go out, he shouldn't be going out in TNA. He should be going out in WWE. That's the first thing. He should not be a part of that company.
Okay, well, I'm just getting more towards the idea of his health overall. So, Other Will, what are your thoughts on people hating on Hogan still in 2010 for not putting some vanilla midgets over in the 90s, I guess?
He was responsible for the two biggest booms in wrestling history, the 80s, and then when he helped make the NWO versus the NWF thing. He was the centerpiece of both those big booms times. So people need to shut the hell up. Now, granted, I'm also on the boat where, yes, I don't really need to see him in the ring anymore. Even when he was in his prime, he still wasn't that great, but he was still he had great charisma and still fun to watch, but he wasn't all that great in the ring. And now it's wow, man, you can't even run the ropes anymore. Now, I love Hulk Hogan, I really do, but again, like I said with Ric Flair, I think his time is past. I respect the man a great deal, but yes, please, right off on the sunset. Or at least do a talking job instead of wrestling.
Clearly. Now, I'm very biased, of course, because everyone knows I'm a Hogan fan, and I hate on guys like Triple H or Michaels or whatever, but I would never be all giddy, at least in a serious manner. Maybe I'd make a stupid joke here and there, but I wouldn't be wishing them to be crippled or just so they can't win the title again or beat some other young guy. So, Ryan from Massachusetts, you're on our message board. What's your sentiments?
My exact comment, I don't know if it was word for word, but I said I think we'll live as far as not seeing him wrestle again. Obviously, there is not one reason you shouldn't have the most respect in the world for Hulk Hogan. I mean, just like Will said, he's Hulk fucking Hogan. So, I mean, nobody should hate on him for wrestling. If anything, maybe I'm kind of pleased that we're not going to have to see him wrestling again, but I would never wish injury on anybody. And Eric, I make the claim that I hate Triple H as much, if not more than you do, so even I wouldn't wish harm on him.
All right, let's give 347 another chance. 347?
Hello?
Hello, you're on with Wrestling Roundtable. We're talking about Hulk Hogan possibly being crippled and the Internet being thrilled about it. Your name and location?
Kirk from Toronto.
All right. Up north in Canada, what do you think where they love Hulk Hogan?
Yeah, I think everybody loves Hulk Hogan. He's a great wrestler. I mean, he's one of the greatest of all time. But I think what people are expressing is, a displeasure with the fact that this guy's still sort of around. I mean, his image, his icon.
God forbid he's still around.
It's not about being around. I mean, it's not just he's still wrestling on top of everything. I don't know. It just seems to me like
he's wrestled one match in TNA this year. What's everyone so upset about?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I just feel like it's time for him. He's obviously trying his best to pass the torch in a way with TNA guys. He's really trying to sort of take a secondary role, but I don't know. I just feel like imagine if we were watching an action movie and Roger Moore came out of nowhere, you know what I mean? It's kind of weird. I watched Predators a couple hours ago, and I thought, oh, man, Adrian Brody, you could be an action star. But imagine if Roger Moore was still somewhere in the background, as a secret agent or something. I think it was ridiculous,
Yeah, but if it was Sean Connery, he'd come in and kick Roger Moore's ass. So, Will, a lot of the rumor, I guess, that people were so upset about was that Abyss might be beating Rob Van Dam for the title just so Hulk Hogan can wrestle him and win, and this was, of course, pre-surgery. Even if Hogan hadn't had the surgery and is claiming these health issues now, I still think Hogan winning the TNA title would be great, even if not in a completely serious manner. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, Hogan, he's already there helping out this company as much as he can. And
even if it's for a week, he's the biggest fucking wrestling star ever. Give Hogan the belt for a week. Who cares?
Okay, well, there's nothing wrong with giving him the belt. I mean, he can retire it. He can stop wrestling after it. I mean, it looks like they're definitely pushing towards an Abyss, Hogan type feud. After they, basically Hogan's has had a story with him since day one when he walked in. So It definitely makes sense to kind of end it with a title match and have Hogan win it, as long as Hogan can be physically ready to take on that challenge. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having like a tag match or something to kind of hide Hogan's injuries, but yeah.
Well, they didn't do a good job of hiding anything in that first Monday night tag match.
Well, they did that because they were trying to compete with Vince and thought this would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, because it worked 10 years earlier too.
That wasn't the right moment for that. But definitely, I think the Abyss Hogan feud, because Abyss, again, he won't be able to do any big moves to Hogan, so it might be a very slow match. But still, there's going to be a lot of emotional investment, especially the belts on the line, and it could be Hogan's one of his final matches of his career. I absolutely would love to see that, and I think maybe they'll get some pay-per-view buys out of it. If they do it on Impact, they're going to make a big mistake, because then people will get a free match with Hogan. Hogan should never have a free match on TV, I'll tell you that right now.
Well, they gave it a shot, and hey, if they did it on pay-per-view, you talked about Hogan's limitations, maybe we'll be surprised. I mean, this is the era where just a couple of years ago, when they were doing the fake ECW, and we will, speaking of ECW, get to that, where Big Show was tossing around Ric Flair in thumbtacks, something we've never seen, and Abyss was throwing Sting in thumbtacks the other year, so maybe Hogan would do it too, who knows. But, like I said, speaking of ECW, want to get to the invasion that they did on Thursday. Now, it had a lot of buzz. People were talking about it after the tapings and giving it a great review, so I thought I'd check it out. And what I thought was pretty funny about it was when we talked about what was then termed the NXT group, now Nexus, when they formed with Bryan Danielson with the choking of the tie and spitting and whatnot. When we talked about it on the show, the first thing out of your mouth, Will, was, "This is why TNA can never do anything like this. TNA," and I was like, "What the fuck does this have to do with TNA?" But I spoke too soon because now to be fair, maybe they were planning this beforehand because they've been trying to get Paul Heyman for a while, and he is related to this. But regardless, it just seems like pretty coincidental timing that they have to do their own sort of invasion group after the NXT thing, and they go back to the well of ECW. I don't know about everyone else, but between the 3 or so ECW incarnations in WWF back before they bought it and after, the hardcore homecomings and all the indie shit, I'm sick of fucking ECW reunions. I have no interest in seeing 40-year-old Fat Raven doing anything with Tommy Dreamer or anybody else. So what'd you think of this invasion, Will? Did it come off as badly to you as it did to me?
First off, it's not an invasion because they were invited, apparently, by Dixie Carter. So now we know it's not an invasion.
Ooh, Dixie Carter invited them. Suspense, shock, cliffhanger. Not at all.
No, it ruined it, if anything. Again, it was such, like, Nexus. Like, I was like, come on, you just copied WWE's formula and used it on TNA. And on top of this, you shouldn't call them ECW because right away they can relate ECW to WWE. So now you're losing an audience with that. And also what you're doing is you're acknowledging them as ECW guys, and you don't even have a video library to even show who these guys are, especially if you're new to the show. So to me, okay, it was cool because I kind of like run-ins like that. I'm kind of a sucker for those, but when she started announcing, like, I invited him here, and everybody stopped, and even, like, ECW guys were like, what, you invited us? Like, did you see that? Like, Alex Mills said, what do you mean you invited us?
Well, apparently everyone's saying that it was heavily edited for whatever reason or whatever they did with it from the way it was when it was taped, and it killed all the magic. But it must have, because comparing it to NXT, I thought it had absolutely none of the energy, none of the emotion, none of the excitement.
No, it was, I agree, because like, Nexus looked like they were, like, seriously, like, pissed off. These guys were just running into the ring kind of doing what they do, and it was just too confusing. This one was a little too confusing because there's too many guys out there, to even do it. ECW didn't even, like, really win the battle because everybody just kind of stopped and no one was really winning. It just didn't make a lot of sense. And the worst part is they only got 2 weeks to really build this whole pay-per-view. It's going to ruin so much steam. I don't understand it. And I don't understand if any fan who likes this crap, then don't fucking watch wrestling anymore because you obviously don't get it. Because this is not...
Jeez, calm down, Will. Don't be so angry. When Dixie Carter got up, I don't know about anybody else, I was starting to get flashbacks to Stephanie being the new owner of ECW in 2001, and comparing those two, before I go to another call, doesn't anyone else find it funny that wrestling in a creative sense has taken such a downward spiral in the past 10 years, more or less, since the women started owning and running it between Stephanie and Dixie? Maybe they should stay in the kitchen. Or, while I'm being sexist, let's bring on a girl. Hello, Corey.
Hi, Eric. And God will strike you down for that comment. No, I'm just
Oh,
joking.
please. If there was such a thing as karma with the shit that comes out of my mouth, I would have been crippled a long time ago. But I know you definitely want to talk about the TNA angle.
I think there are 3 things that just murdered the angle for me on Thursday night. First and foremost, the whole scene where Jeff Jarrett comes running out in a ruffled shirt going, "Stop it! Stop it!" And he brought Nigel behind him. That really made...
You mean Desmond Wolfe?
No, Nigel, forever. The whole thing with Jeff Jarrett running out like a girl really did kill that. And then, of course, the second thing was Dixie Carter, "I invited them." And
hey, that was Golden Globe level acting.
Out of her, I'll buy that. And the third thing that just killed it was what happened right afterwards, where they turned the camera around, and the first person I see is Al Snow, who looks at Dixie and says, What the hell? Excellent. We just killed the whole angle right there. You mean you did invite me? Oh, that's it. It's dead.
I don't know if I can add anything more to that, so I'm going to see if Will from New Jersey can.
The truth, I agree with you. I love ECW, and it has a very special place in my heart. But at the same time, I really don't want to see another reunion. I mean, these guys were great, but they're kind of old and fat, and they can't really work like they used to. And as much as I love them, they weren't that great workers when they were great.
Ryan from Massachusetts want to chime in on the upcoming hardcore pay-per-view and the ECW. I mean, hardcore, whatever invasion it is.
I think they're trying to write themselves off as calling them the Riot Makers. I don't know. But the only thing I think good can come out of this is reports I read, and of course, dirt sheets as reliable as, I don't know. But the one thing that good comes out of this is that I'm hearing a lot of reports that they're really pushing for the main event to be Rob Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn. Eric, if I'm going to wish for TNA to do something good, it's not going to happen, so I might as well wish for the best thing that's never going to happen.
Okay. It just seems to me that this is the latest. And by the way, let's not forget that this isn't even the first ECW invasion that TNA has done. They did one back in 2002 or 3 with Sandman, New Jack, Saturn, etc., the Hardcore Extreme Group, whatever it was. So it's not even the first time this company's done it. But it just seems like the latest in the retreads of past shit, like Hogan with the NWO and earlier in the year, Flair with the Horsemen, and trying to get the Monday Night Wars, and Russo and Bischoff are writing it again, and now it's just getting to the ECW stuff. And they wanted Paul Heyman to be the face of it. We had a poll recently on WrestlingRoundtable.com. What do you think about Paul Heyman joining TNA, since a lot of people were talking about that? I was of the opinion, of course, that it was not going to happen because he wanted full creative control. Yeah, sure. The results were, it'll never happen, got 68%. He will, and it'll be the greatest thing ever. That got 29%. And the others were, who gives a shit, who gives a fuck? That got 2%. He will leave in defeat just as quickly as Hogan and Bischoff. That got 2%. And he will, and it won't make a difference. That was 4%. So, Will Ramirez, do you think that Paul Heyman is this Midas touch master that everything he touches is going to turn to gold instantly overnight, and if he was in sole control of TNA, would just make it completely the greatest thing ever overnight?
Yeah, because that worked with ECW, right, folks? He has great gimmicks. He has good ways with making great talent. He's created a lot of big names in this business that really took off and have really impacted wrestling. As far as taking control of a whole company's booking, I really don't know. I can't say yes. I can't say no. He's been out of the loop for a while, so, I don't know what that means. He has a great creative mind, though. I would say if he was, ahead and say, I had the final say of how everything goes, I wouldn't mind seeing him in there, but, I don't think it makes a difference, personally. I know he wouldn't be booking this crap, I can tell you that.
So, in other words, it couldn't be worse, other Will.
Well, I think Jim Cornette said it once, and I agree with him, that even if they sign him today, it makes TNA better tomorrow. Just in the fact that they have him, because he's way better than Vince Russo. And that he'll push, the better guys, the guys who need to be pushed, he'll get them. And anybody who can make Spike Dudley and, all these other guys who were good, but they weren't great, but made them all, seem wow, these guys are incredible wrestlers. You can turn anybody and make them good. It's automatically better. Now, I'm not saying they're going to overtake WWE with that, but automatically it makes them better if they have him.
Well, let's look at the numbers. TNA, this past week and the past couple of weeks or so, has been really gaining back, shockingly, the audience that they had lost when they switched to Monday nights initially. They're pretty much back on track to where they were doing, numbers-wise, before that. And like I've mentioned on the show numerous times, that is a loyal audience. TNA fans will watch on Thursdays no matter what else is on TV, no matter if it's a holiday or some other specials on, they will watch. And it seems like they're slowly coming back and have pretty much got back to where they were. Do you think that this might have something to do with Hogan and Bischoff not being on TV recently, or getting rid of Hogan and friends like the Nasty Boys and whatnot, Ryan?
Honestly, I just think it's just moving back to Thursday. That's pretty much it. TNA will never amount to any more than they are now. Like, even if they get in Heyman, like they got in Bischoff, they had Cornette. Vince McMahon can walk up onto in the middle of the TNA's ring and say, "Hey, everybody, watch this instead of Raw," and it's not going to do anything.
Do you agree, Corey, that nothing will help TNA, it seems?
Well, I think that letting Hogan's friends walk home definitely helped them a little bit in the ratings, but there's...
Wait, Hogan's friends can walk?
But I think that most of the damage has been done, and if you really want to save TNA, you have to restructure the whole company from the ground up. I don't think the ECW invasion angle is going to last with the fans much longer. And certainly, we can never expect Paul Heyman to go there because he owns a working television set.
I've said for years that TNA has all the potential in the world and does nothing but squander it. So I want to, as a wrestling fan, when I see guys like Kurt Angle and Nigel, or Desmond, whichever you prefer to call him, Corey.
Nigel.
When I see them put on such great matches, and not just them, there's so many great, talented young guys there. And they do have a slew of older guys. Now, really, realistically, outside of, let's say, a group of 4 of the established names, let's call them Hogan, Sting, Flair, Angle, they really don't need anybody else because those are the fucking names. Not that there isn't a use for other guys, but it just seems like they don't have that vision beyond what has already been accomplished in wrestling years ago. And it's just so sad to see them succeed on some levels and then take further falls back, like when they would do the Joe Angle cage match at Lockdown the other year and succeed with the X Division years ago and just even have the foresight to sign some of these guys, but then they leave so many other people out in the cold. It blows my mind, and probably you as well, Corey, because you're a Ring of Honor fan,
Absolutely.
that how many people have slipped through the cracks in TNA over the years and gone on to be fed into the hands of WWE, and now they're big stars. CM Punk, Mickie James, big stars at WrestleManias. That's not even to mention the guys like the Paul Londons, and they had the Briscoes years ago on Explosion. I don't get how they can just pass up and let someone else get their hands on these people. Now, as a Ring of Honor fan, like I said, do you probably feel the same way about guys like Homicide?
Absolutely.
Or Nigel?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I find it hysterical right now that Dixie Carter is trying to get a hold of Delirious when it's very obvious she can't handle Homicide. I mean, she actually acted surprised when he tried to kill people. I'm like, did you not realize that he thinks his name is a suggestion? You can't handle Sting. You can't handle Homicide. Now you want to try and book Delirious. Good luck with you. It's baffling. A perfect example of where TNA is screwing around with Ring of Honor guys is last week. Sabin, who used to be in Ring of Honor, climbed the ladder, got the little things they had up there. I don't remember if it was a contract or not. Part of the Best of 5 series matches. He climbs the ladder, he gets the thing. Technically, that should be the end of the match, but no. The referee is out twiddling his thumbs. James Storm hits him in the head, takes what's in Sabin's hand, and goes, look, I got it. And the referee says, okay. And Sabin loses. I don't understand how that happened. That was ridiculous booking.
Everything is ridiculous booking, it seems, but something more ridiculous. I have someone on the line, world exclusive. This is something I've been working on all week. It's a big surprise I was saving for the show to see if I could get him. But he's been on the news a lot recently, getting a lot of negative publicity, but I think I have a way to solve it. So, if I could get Mel Gibson on the line. Oh, there he is. Seems like he's still angry. You okay, Mel? Hello? Oh, whoa. Hold on right there. I wanted to talk to you about all the stuff that's been going on with your calls being played. And Goldberg, this is why I wanted to bring you on the Wrestling Roundtable. Goldberg said on TMZ a few weeks ago that you deserve to be beat up by a big Jew like him. And that sounds like an MMA match to me, doesn't it? You think we're going to see Martin Briggs get in the cage with Goldberg, Mel?
I won't stand for that anymore. It's a fucking embarrassment to me.
Well, what do you mean? I think it'd be awesome.
What the fuck do you hope to accomplish with that?
It'd be great for your image.
No!
What? Come on. I mean, hey, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu made Gary Busey tap out.
I'm telling you. I'm just telling you the truth. I don't like it.
Oh, come on, Mel.
You fucking offend me.
Okay. I didn't mean to offend you, Mel. Let's just see. What can I do to put this match together? Because I think it would be
You
good.
can rot unless you crawl back, suck my cock, and say you're sorry in that order.
All right. Enough of that. All right. That didn't work out too well. So let's get back to the wrestling. Like I said, there was a lot of positive reviews in the past week, and that was for WWE. They did Money in the Bank on Sunday, the first Money in the Bank pay-per-view featuring multiple Money in the Bank matches. Drew McIntyre promised that you would love this card. Did you love it, Will? You don't want a ticket refund, right?
No way. This was a great show. I think this one really stood out. A lot of things, it was a good flow. There wasn't really a bad match on the show. So I really couldn't say I wasn't disappointed throughout. There was no high and lows. Everything was really steadily very good, and it made sense. And when we go to a SummerSlam now, things are making more and more sense now to this show. This show was definitely a hit. I think that WWE did the right thing by doing a Money in the Bank show with 2 different matches, and to me, I think it was wonderful. The Big Show looked like a real monster in the show. They showcase shows like size, like how big he really is. Yeah, Big Show, exactly. And then on top of it, you get the surprise that Kane wins Money in the Bank and wins the title. He hasn't had a belt in so long, and I say congrats to him. He hasn't had a belt in such a long time, and he deserves it for being a true company guy for like the last 12 years. Well, that's how I look at it. I mean, people may not like it, but come on, the guy has been working there how long? Does he not deserve a championship belt?
I don't know if being there means you deserve a belt, because fucking Bob Holly would have been world champion. But actually, I do want to mention something about Kane, because I did particularly enjoy the Jack Swagger and Rey Mysterio title match. It started off kind of sloppy. There were a couple blown spots at the beginning, and like I said, I'm a stickler for form, so it didn't take away from the match too much. It wasn't that bad, but the match really picked up from there, and one of the things I really like about Mysterio, I've said on the show before that he's pretty much WWE's MVP for pay-per-view matches in the past couple of years. To me, I know some people would say Jericho, but for me it's Ray. And I really enjoy the transitions that encounters when it gets towards the latter end of the match and the finishers are being employed. It seems like the only people saying bad stuff about the show, as far as our message board goes, were people who didn't see the show. They were ragging on Mysterio using the Eddie versus Angle finish, more or less, from WrestleMania 20 with the boot. I thought it was pretty neat. I guess you're the representative of the message board tonight, Ryan.
By tradition, I'm usually the only person who has anything good to say about a WWE show. So
okay.
if the rest of the people are saying it's a good show, I loved it. One thing I really loved about both Money in the Bank matches is every time, like in the latter half of each match, every time someone has climbed the ladder, you legitimately believe they could have won it. That's something I really like. You really believe that, like, Drew could have won it. You really believe that Ziggler could have won it. You really believe that Evan could have won it. It could have gone to anybody, really. I mean, the Kane winning the title, I mean, much like it was previously said, Kane deserves it. I know people were hating on it. I liked it. I liked the nod to Eddie for the finish of that the match. The NXT running on the steel cage match might have been the one sour note, but, I mean, what did people expect? Even the Divas title match, as far as modern-day Diva matches go, it was actually not too bad. So, I mean, this was a pretty solid card, top to bottom.
I got off track, and you mentioned Kane. One of the things I was going to bring up about Kane, he looks like he's gotten himself in pretty decent shape. It seemed like he was kind of letting himself go the past couple of years, but looks like he's trimming up a little bit. But one of the things I noticed in the segment when he came in with Ray, which I did think was a little goofy for him to run out twice, first to attack Swagger and then to come out again with his briefcase. They probably could have just saved time and just got it all done in one shot, but nitpicking. What I was going to say about Kane was one thing I noticed, and this is what I admire about him as a performer. I noticed that he still puts in that contact in his right eye. And I just admire that detail because being the fan that I am, I remember back in 1997 when he first debuted and Paul Bearer said, "He has a fake eye! He's missing an eye!" And he's been putting in that contact every show for the past 13 years or so coming up, and I just admire a little attention to details like that. Corey, any thoughts on, let's say, for instance, The Miz winning the briefcase?
Ugh, that was awful. I'm actually glad that Kane won the match. I'm really glad that he finally got the belt after 12 years since his last real title. Unless, of course, you wanted to count the WWE ECW belt, which I don't know if you do.
Well, okay, let's clarify that. You fucking should. And this is what I find very funny about this whole ECW, was it a world title or not, debate. Because obviously WWE can never make up their minds about their own world titles. One day it's the big gold belt is the WCW lineage title, goes back to NWA and Abraham Lincoln. And then on their website they'll say, no, it starts with Triple H and 02, but it's the same belt and blah, 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 blah. So conflicting backstory there, and that's just the big gold belt. To ECW, how can they say Big Show, when he did win it in the fake ECW, as I mentioned earlier a couple years ago, is the Grand Slam champion? They even made a T-shirt with all 3 belts on it. But now everyone after him isn't the world champion? I did notice that they said, this is the first world title Kane's won in about 10 years, because Michael Cole can't count, because it's been over 12. But, yeah, they said it was his first world title in over 12 years. So, continue, Corey.
Well, I actually liked seeing Kane as champion. The one sour note from the pay-per-view, aside from the ridiculous diva matches, were how Nexus came out. I didn't mind seeing them trying to enter the cage, but what really got me was when the referees took the pliers out of Tarver's hand, walked away, and then all the kids looked to the back, like they were waiting for some magical cue to point them to the cage. I couldn't help but notice that. Overall, it wasn't too bad a show. I think the biggest highlight, though, is definitely Kane getting the belt. It's long overdue.
All right. Well, I'm going to go to Will from New Jersey after taking another call. 858, I think that's a Los Angeles or California number. You're on with Wrestling Roundtable. Name and location, please.
Stay on this phone and don't hang up on me. I have plenty of energy to drive over there. You understand me?
It's Mel again.
And I will. So just fucking listen to me. Don't hang up on me.
All right. Calm down.
You hang up, I'm coming over there.
What do you want?
You make my life so fucking difficult.
So, hold on. Let's change the subject, because obviously you were pretty upset about the suggestion to fight Goldberg. There was a topic last week, and I know you've had some problems with women recently, but speaking of women, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Martha Hart and her lawsuit against WWE, and any thoughts on Martha Hart?
Dishonest cunt.
Oh, come on.
Honest, fucking, gold-digging cunt. Now I'm sure you whore.
Oh, this sounds like Will.
Fucking selfish bitch.
Oh, come on, Mel.
Fucking bitch.
She has a legal right to sue WWE, which she does, whether you agree with what she wants to do with the library or not. It's within her legal rights. She is the owner of the estate, and they never sent her a royalty check or asked her permission.
She'll blow me in 5 seconds.
Oh, this is just uncalled for. I don't agree with this at all. So I'm going to have to hang up on you, Mel. All right, back to Will. What do you think of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view? Did you check it out?
First, I want to say I'm really happy that Kane has been able to hold the title for longer than a day this time. It's kind of cool. I didn't like it the first time they lost it after one day. It was like, what the fuck's the point? But whatever.
Actually, now that you mention it, not to cut you off, I'll let you continue, but now that you mention it, I do want to at least give a little preview, because we're going to be taping on Sunday new editions of Wrestling Roundtable for YouTube, iTunes, and Go Fight Live. We're going to be talking about the Attitude Era, doing an entire show on the Attitude Era, following that up with what to do and what not to do, our opinions on how to execute a storyline or feud, and the best and worst pay-per-views of all time. But back to the Attitude Era. That, of course, took place in the Attitude Era, and I was particularly perplexed at that at the time. I guess I'll go into more detail on camera, but it seems that a lot of people just think that Kane's been around, and he's been pretty decent worker most of this time, and even good character. I know, for me in particular, I am not fucking looking forward to the 700 billionth Undertaker-Kane match that they wanted to do at SummerSlam. Undertaker might not be ready in time for that, so that might be held off for another month or so. But all the same, it seems like Kane's got a lot of supporters. They think that this is long overdue, and he earned this title.
I agree. But another thing I want to touch on, though, you mentioned, remember how I think you said on one of your shows that the Royal Rumble used to be used as a launching pad to launch a new star, but it just hasn't done that in years. I was thinking maybe it's the Money in the Bank pretty much taken over that role as launching new stars, because it's launched CM Punk. Now they're going to. It just seems like they're using this now as the launching pad instead of the Royal Rumble like they used to. Do you see that too, or is it just me?
I could see it, and I've never been a fan of the Money in the Bank matches. The first one I thought was really good, and everything else has been either hit or miss for me, and mostly misses. But the problem to me was just the timing, because the Royal Rumble was supposed to traditionally be, of course, starting in about 1993, to be the lead-in for WrestleMania, because the Rumble is a fun match everybody likes, and everyone tunes in and gets the setup. That being said, the winner was supposed to get a shot at the title, and of course that's been diluted since the brand split in a way. Then, right at WrestleMania, you've already got someone getting a title shot match, which is the Money in the Bank, immediately. And even though it can be used for up to a year, they've said they've never waited that long. I think they might have wanted to do that with Anderson, but of course his injuries prevented that. I just always felt that the Money in the Bank match as a marquee sort of traditional thing would have been better suited at SummerSlam, because that's the second biggest show of the year and that's the midway point. But it's pretty visceral. People are into it. They like the cashing in the Money in the Bank garbage. Do you think, Will Vafidez, that this is an accurate description that they're more dependent on Money in the Bank now?
Yeah, I mean, the Royal Rumble is like, the winner of the Royal Rumble is supposed to headline WrestleMania. That's what the whole goal is. Money in the Bank now is kind of like a way to launch someone's career, or at least attempt to, like, either relaunch or launch a career. So to me, I like the format because it gives someone like a gimmick for a while. Like Anderson was going to roll with it. Edge, if it wasn't for Edge having this gimmick, I don't think he would have gotten over as much as he did, because he used that Money in the Bank all the time, and he did it so well. That's how he got over. He used his Money in the Bank opportunity, and he really rolled with it. Anderson could have rolled with it if he didn't get injured. CM Punk, did it twice, and he got, good heat out of it. So I think it is, and I think The Miz now having it is a good gimmick for him. He could, he's the kind of guy that, wouldn't it be the funniest thing if he lost that Money in the Bank match? Because I think if there was one guy it could happen to, it would be the funniest thing in the world if he cashed it in and just like lost him like in a roll-up. It would be the funniest thing ever, because everyone really hates The Miz, because he's such an asshole, but he's so awesome.
Would he also lose the U.S. title in the process?
That'd be fun. That'd be even funnier if he puts both of them on the line at the same time and loses both at the same time. I think that would be like the funniest thing ever. I think it would be like a good talk if that actually happened.
I was going to ask about The Miz, because I saw the term used a lot for his briefcase win as they finally pulled the trigger. I didn't know that the briefcase became equivalent to winning the world title, apparently.
Where have you been the past 7 years?
I just mean in the actual instance of winning the briefcase. It's a fucking briefcase. Until I see him, main eventing a pay-per-view for the world title, like he might, then that'll be really pulling the trigger for me. I don't think just winning this step in the process up the ladder is necessarily pulling the trigger. But now that you mention that, Ryan, do you think this could be them finally going all the way with Miz like they were teasing they might do last year?
I think I'm one of the few people on the forum who like The Miz.
No, I hate his guts. I'm not a fan, but I know lots of people do like him, and he's perfectly suited for this role. He's a great heel. People have been really getting into his work, and people really want to see it. So I've got nothing against it. It's probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, me and a lot of my friends last night on Raw, when he hit his skull-crushing finale, best name for a finisher ever, on Sheamus. Like, you saw the dent it left in the briefcase, and like me, all my friends, we were all like standing. We were going fuck yeah, go, Miz, go! And then you hear our Truth music hitting. We're like, fuck Truth, damn it. Like, we were really, really pumped. And, like, you could tell the entire crowd was pumped because even though everyone seems to hate Miz, they hate Sheamus more. But, I mean, come on, that would have been Miz's moment. The crowd was not louder at any other point that night than when they thought Miz was cashing in Money in the Bank.
Well, speaking of Raw, that's what we're going to move on to here on Wrestling Roundtable Radio. But before we do, I want to remind you to visit our Amazon store. Now, it's not just wrestling, whether it be WWE or TNA or even mixed martial arts with UFC and even old Pride shows. In addition to shoot interviews, PWG, FMW, Ring of Honor, whatever else, you can get anything now on the Amazon store. So if you're shopping for anything on Amazon, please do it through our Amazon store and help support the Wrestling Roundtable. And you can also go to our shop and get the Wrestling Roundtable t-shirt as well. So, now that the plug is out of the way, as we were on the subject of Raw, Will, thoughts on Raw?
It was booked the right way. I think the opening match was a phenomenal match. If you have a chance to watch the first match, which was a triple threat, it was definitely a really great match with Jericho, Edge, and Orton. Orton does so well with, he doesn't even do that much moves, but the way he does it psychologically, he is like the best that is in the business. Everything was booked right. I mean, the ending was booked great. Cena kind of hinting he might go to Nexus, the Miz almost cashing it in, which I think is great. I think he'll be doing that quite often. He'll try to cash it in, but someone's going to ruin it for him. And, it'll just be funny because everybody was on their feet, exactly like how they said. He was on his feet. Like, everybody was, like, ready to see him win the belt. And then, fuck, we're not going to see it tonight. So we're going to see that a lot, I think. But I think the overall show is getting SummerSlam booked up, ready to be they're making SummerSlam their one of their biggest shows, like, second biggest show. And it always has been. So they're really booking SummerSlam very well. They already got 3 matches booked. So I think they're going to definitely have some good steam going into the next week Raw.
Are you excited about this 7-on-7 match featuring Khali and Bret Hart, Will?
No, not at all. I think the Nexus thing is, it started off so great. And I'm not even talking about the losing Bryan Danielson. It just seems like it might have been cooler. Like, I don't like the fact they have music now and they come out through the back. I mean, if all they do is beat the shit out of everybody in the back, why don't the whole locker room just band together and beat the shit out if they're in the back way? If they came out from the crowd, it would make a lot more sense, I just think the whole Nexus thing sucks, and the fact they want to put Bret Hart back in the ring when he can't really wrestle anymore, because he can't get hit in the head because he has stroke.
Let's be realistic. It's probably just going to be he comes in, throws one punch, and that's it, right?
Well, he probably puts Wade Barrett in a sharpshooter, which is I'm not against seeing. I love Bret Hart, but it's like it's the same thing with Hulk Hogan. I don't want to see Hulk Hogan do another leg drop. I've seen it 1.5 billion times, and yes, it's cool, but come on, times have changed. It's not cool anymore.
Ryan, any more thoughts on Raw?
A really solid triple threat match to open the show. I was hoping for Jericho to win, if not for the whole bring him back into relevance that he hasn't had since WrestleMania. The fact that we never actually saw a blow-off match for the Edge-Orton feud. Once again, the Miz cash-in possibility was highlight of the show, but I mean, I was really pumped with the Cena picking a 7-man team. Yes, Bret and Khali are a little negatives, but did anybody not, a lot of people got chills in their spines when they just saw Edge as the first man to walk out. Like, Cena, I've assembled a team. Oh, it's going to be a bunch of faces. And then Edge walks out, and it's like, shit just got real. Like, Edge and Jericho. So, I mean, as soon as you saw Edge and Cena lock eyes, you knew, fuck, shit just got real.
The lesson is in wrestling, if you are feuding with someone, you will eventually team with them.
I thought it was interesting that the Nexus didn't seem scared of Edge or Morrison or Khali, none of them. But as soon as Bret came out, those boys trucked right up to the nosebleed section and cowered like little girls. I couldn't help but find that hysterical. I don't know, I thought it was a nice surprise. Maybe it's because I grew up with the Hitman, but I thought it was kind of a nice surprise, and the fact that they ran away, that was really funny.
Seems like wrestling fans had a good couple weeks. and hope you had a good couple hours here on Wrestling Roundtable Radio. We'll be back in a couple weeks with the Wrestling Roundtable drinking game. What's that going to entail? Find out in a couple weeks. In the meantime, wherever you're listening to us, please subscribe, share, comment, and rate. And join us on WrestlingRoundtable.com. We've got chat rooms, polls, articles, columns, news, message board, store, everything for you, Wrestling Roundtable. So for the panel of Will Vafides and the callers, I'm Eric Santamaria, and the only thing left to say is...